The Hello Kitty murder case, Hong Kong's most disturbing crime. In 1999, a 14-year-old girl walked into a Hong Kong police station, trembling, terrified. She claimed she was being haunted by the ghost of a woman who had been tortured to death. At first, officers dismissed her until she told them where to look. When police searched the apartment, they found something no one could have imagined: a human skull, hidden inside a Hello Kitty mermaid plushie. The horrors they uncovered would become known as one of the most gruesome and senseless crimes in Hong Kong's history. Chapter 1. Who was Fan Man Yi? Fan Man Yi was 23 years old. Abandoned by her family at a young age, she grew up in an orphanage and spent her teenage years fighting to survive. She fell into drug addiction, and by her early 20s was working in Hong Kong's underground prostitution. But she was trying to change her life. She'd married, given birth to a son, and was holding a job as a nightclub hostess. She was working hard to escape the past, but fate had other plans. Fan's husband was described as abusive, and neighbors in their Mongkok apartment building would report being awakened by sounds of the couple's fights and the child screaming and crying. Fan decided to turn her life around in order to protect her son and provide him a safer life. She quit drugs and prostitution, got a job as a hostess at a nightclub named Empress Karaoke Club, and eventually left her violent husband shortly before her murder. Chapter 2. The Men Who Took Her. In early 1999, Fan made a fateful mistake. She allegedly stole a few $1,000s from a client, Chan Manlock. A 34-year-old member of the triad, Chan wasn't the kind of man you should steal from. Instead of forgiving or forgetting, Chan decided to teach her a lesson. But what he did was far beyond revenge. With help from two other men, 21-year-old Luong Wai Lun and 27-year-old Luong Xing Cho, he abducted Fan and brought her to a third-floor apartment in Kowloon. And for the next month, they turned that apartment into a house of horrors. Chapter 3. The Torture. According to one source, she was beaten with metal bars, sometimes while being strung up and used as a punching bag. On one occasion, Fan was kicked in the head around 50 times. Spices were rubbed into Fan's wounds. Her legs and feet were burned with candle wax and hot plastic. What happened inside that apartment is almost too horrific to speak aloud. Fan was tortured relentlessly, burned with hot oil, beaten with metal rods, forced to consume human waste, and all of it was done while the men laughed. At night, they forced her to smile, to pretend she was enjoying the abuse. A psychological torture layered on top of the physical. If she refused, they subjected her to even harsher torture. This treatment eventually led to traumatic shock and ultimately death. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about control, power, cruelty for the sake of cruelty. After nearly a month of continuous torture, Fan succumbed to her injuries. But the horror didn't stop there. Chapter 4. The Hello Kitty Doll. The men dismembered her body. Parts were boiled, others were discarded. And her skull was sewn inside a Hello Kitty mermaid doll, the same kind you might see in a child's bedroom. Only her skull, one tooth, and some internal organs were recovered in a plastic bag. Other parts were recovered from trash dumps. It was a symbol, a grotesque trophy, a final act of mockery. Chapter 5. The Girl Who Spoke Out. The case would have remained hidden forever, if not for a 14-year-old girl. She had been living with the killers, possibly abused herself. Haunted by what she witnessed, she told police she was being visited by Fan's ghost. Police were skeptical, but when they followed her to the apartment, they found what she claimed: and more. Her confession cracked open one of the darkest secrets the city had ever seen. Chapter 6: The Trial and Verdict. The trial began in late 2000. The evidence was overwhelming. But there was one problem. No one could prove exactly how Fan died. The autopsy was incomplete, her remains too decomposed. As a result, the killers were convicted of manslaughter, not murder. All three were sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 20 years. The three men were convicted of manslaughter with a vote of 6-3. As the 8-man and 1-woman jury ruled, the remains were not sufficient to show whether Fan was murdered or died from a drug overdose. Fan's skull was the only exhibit in the case. After the trial, it was kept by the forensic pathologist in the Kowloon public mortuary until the appeal process of the prisoners was completed. At her birth, family was notified in March 2004 that the skull would be returned and cremated on the 26th of March. It was a verdict that outraged many, and one that still stirs debate today. Chapter 7: The Legacy. The Hello Kitty murder case shook Hong Kong to its core. It forced the nation to confront issues of inequality, violence against women, and the hidden world of organized crime. Fan Man Yi was not just a victim. She was a forgotten woman, failed by a system that should have protected her. And perhaps that's the most chilling part of all. This didn't happen in the shadows. It happened right in the heart of the city, while the world looked the other way. If you found this story important, please like, comment, and subscribe. Share it, not to sensationalize it, but to remember Fan Man Yi, to speak for those who couldn't. This was the Hello Kitty murder case. Thank you for watching.